welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down my top wide receiver plays for this Week 11 NFL DFS slate on DraftKings. Before we get into it, if you could leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future content that I upload, that'd be greatly appreciated. And I have released multiple NFL DFS packages over there on Patreon, where you can get access to my projections, rankings, and all the sheets and stuff that I reference during the video. I'll give you a sneak peek of some of the stuff as I'm talking about it, reference some of my stuff, and give you my top plays. But if you want access to the full sheet, that's going to be linked below in the description. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down my top plays at the wide receiver position. Going to go tier by tier. We'll start at the highest salary guys that I'm interested in, work our way down. The first guy that I want to talk about this week is Julio Jones, taking on the New Orleans Saints. Julio Jones comes in at 7,500 on DraftKings. I'm projecting this game to play at a very fast pace, projecting for about 68 snaps to be played. And, Julio Jones, just an absolute beast out there on the field. I got him projected for 17.9 DK points right now with a 49.5 over-under in this game. And when looking at my wide receiver matchup chart, taking on the New Orleans Saints, you can see that the Saints are the 14th best team to target in terms of wide receivers this year, giving up 38.2 DK points a game. And specifically looking at Julio Jones' stats on the year, Julio has a 77.5 snap share percentage, 20.8 target share percentage, 11.2 average target distance, 11.4 yards per target, 14.8 yards per reception, all great stuff. 89.4 air yards per game, that really stands out. 93.5 true catch rate, and of course the red zone, the where all the money happens. He's got 9 red zone targets, 5 end zone targets. So you love to see that. Julio just kind of really checks all the boxes this week. And then just factoring in his target share and what I'm projecting this game to move at as far as pace and targets and snaps and just total overall involvement, I can't say enough how much I love it. And he is my first guy that I definitely have interest in this week. Moving further along on my list, the next guy that I want to talk about is Keenan Allen, taking on the New York Jets. They got a huge total in this game. The Chargers do. Keenan Allen, very involved in this offense. He's got 85.9% snap share. Projecting him to get 65 snaps in this one. 18.66 DK points, 9.5 point spread, and they have a 27.75 implied team total and a 1.09 big play rating for Keenan Allen. So gotta like all of that stuff. Taking on the New York Jets and looking at my matchup chart, you can see that the Jets are the 8th best team to target in terms of wide receivers, 40.3 DK points a game. And then Keenan Allen specifically, his involvement in this offense is just tremendous. 87.7 snap share percentage, 93 targets, 29% target share in the offense. Love to see that. 84.9 air yards per game, 94.2 true catch rate, and he's just a beast. I mean, contested targets, he's got 16, 10 of those he's caught, 62.5% contested catch conversion rate, and I don't know. You can't speak enough about how much this guy's involved in the offense. 9 red zone targets, 7 end zone targets. In a PPR format like DraftKings, Keenan Allen is just an absolute beast, and everything matches up for him to be a great play this week, taking on this New York Jets team. He had a little bit of a dud last week, but the 3 weeks before, 28, 21, 25 DK points, and I think we're going to see him get back up to the 20-plus range. I love him in this matchup. I have him projected for 18.66 points as a base projection, but of course, there's always upside for more, and I do think that he's going to get that upside. Honestly, I like him even more than my projections do. So he is my top wide receiver play of the slate. Moving further along, Terry McLaurin is a guy that I definitely have interest in, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals team. This is the 2 games that I'm really going to be talking about a lot, I feel, on this week, is this Washington-Cincy game and the Atlanta-New Orleans game. They're just really grading out great in my model as far as pace. I'm projecting him to be involved in 68 snaps, the offense, that is, anyways, and he's 94.4% snap percentage as far as being out there on the field. You got to love to see that. I got him projected for 16.97 DK points, 24 implied team total for his team, and a 1.11 big play rating. And then when looking at who he's taken on in the Bengals and how they fared against wide receivers this year, we can see that they are the 17th best team to target in terms of DK points given to the game, 36.8 DK points per game to wide receivers. And Terry McLaurin is a guy that has a large involvement in this offense, a 99.3 snap share percentage, 86 targets, 26.5 target share percentage in the offense. You got to love to see that. Yards per reception, 13.8. 94.8 air yards a game. That really stands out. 91.9 true catch rate. And he's got the red zone targets as well. 8 red zone targets, 4 end zone targets. So Terry McLaurin, similar to Keenan Allen, really ranking high in my projections this week. I love him. Comes in at 6'9" this week on DraftKings. And I definitely think that he's going to continue the production that we've seen from him throughout this year. A guy that's just really, he's not involved in the best offense, unfortunately. If we could get this guy an elite QB, I don't know what he would be able to do because he looks real good. 18, 27, 22, 14 DK points. I look for him to keep it rolling this week, and I definitely have interest in Terry McLaurin. Next guy on my list is Juju SmithSchuster taking on this Jacksonville Jaguars team for the Steelers. The Steelers are a team that I definitely have interest in targeting as well. Juju comes in at a $6,400 price tag, playing on 80.4% of the snaps, 15.88 DK points. His team has a -10 spread, but it's a 28 implied total for their side with a 1.14 big play rating for Juju, so I love to see that. As far as how Jacksonville has fared against wide receivers, they are the 13th best team to target in terms of DK points given up a game, 38.3 DK points a game to wide receivers. And when looking at his season stats and how Juju's played in his involvement in the offense, we can see that he has a 79.9 snap share percentage, 70 targets, 20.8 target share in the offense. That's pretty good, stands out. And then his true catch ratings at 96.4, 14 contested targets, 6 of those have been caught, and 12 red zone targets. That's where it really stands out. As we're scrolling along here, his yards per target, his yards per reception, all this stuff in the middle of my chart here really doesn't stand out as a slot short pass down type of guy. But the red zone targets really stands out. 12 red zone targets, 5 end zone targets. They're looking to him very often in the red zone, Big Ben. When it gets down to it and it's money time, he's throwing it to Juju. So factoring all these things, factoring in his price tag and how he grades on my projections at a $6,400 price tag this week on DraftKings, I definitely have interest in Juju. 22 points last week, 21.3 points in week 9. Just love him. Definitely a good play for me this week. Next guy is T. Higgins for the, let's go back to my projections hub. Sorry if I got off track there. Let's go back. And T. Higgins is going to be up, but we're going to go Justin Jefferson first at the $6K price tag. Justin Jefferson is criminally underpriced, in my opinion, in this matchup taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Jefferson is my top value upside play, so to speak, the guy that has the most upside with the most value. There are better value plays. We'll get to those later in the video, but they're not really the upside guys I'm looking to. Justin Jefferson's my number one. Taking on this Dallas Cowboys team, when looking at how they fared against wide receivers, they've been real bad all year. 6th best team to target in terms of DK points given up a game. The secondary has really struggled. And when looking at Justin Jefferson's performance this year, 23.1 target share percentage, average target distance 13.4. That's great. Yards per reception 18.1. The guy has been going deep. He's a deep ball target. He's got a ton of upside. I love him. 17.2 air yards per reception, 93.3 true catch rate. It really all matches up. The only thing he doesn't have is the end zone target. He's more of a long distance target, but when we're factoring in his price tag, we're factoring in the matchup, and we're factoring in his upside. I absolutely love him this week. 6,000 salary on DraftKings is just too cheap, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have some higher ownership this week, but I don't care. I said Keenan Allen's my top play on the slate, and he is. But as far as price tag and upside, as I'd already mentioned, Justin Jefferson's that guy. I love him this week. 24.5 DK points put up last week at a 4.8 price tag. He got the price tag bump back up to 6K. I still think it's too cheap. Love him this spot. Can't emphasize it enough. Get him in your lineups this week. Deontay Johnson, the next guy I want to talk about, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars have been really struggling against the wide receiver position. I mean, mid-tier, I don't want to say really struggling, but they're not good. They don't fear me at all. 13th best team to target. So I definitely think he's in a good matchup to perform here. And I've got him projected for, I just love the Steelers stack. There's a few teams as I'm going here you're going to pick up on that I'm high on. It has to do with pace. It has to do with their implied team total. It has to do with some. So naturally, as I'm covering wide receivers, as I'm covering all these positions throughout the week, we're kind of picking up on our stacks as we're talking about it because it's like, oh, I like this guy, and they all correlate well together. So Deontay Johnson, one of those guys. We talked about Juju. I love Deontay Johnson. 5.9K price tag, grades out great in my model. I got him projected for 15.03 DraftKings points. His team has a 28 implied total, as we'd already mentioned, 1.14 big play rating, taking on the Jaguars. And the target share in the Steelers' offense is just so predictable, and I love it because I think stacking up Big Ben with these wideouts is very viable. And then, I'm starting with Juju. I'm starting with Deontay Johnson. Claypool is also a viable option. He just doesn't grade out as well for his price tag in my price model, so he's not on my list as far as what I'm covering. But we'll talk about my stacks. I love these guys. Last week, 11 targets. The week before, 10 targets. And I think it's going to keep going for Deontay Johnson, and he's going to put up a big number this week. So I definitely have interest in him at his 5.9K price tag on DraftKings. I got back-to-back Cincy wide receivers right here to talk about in this next one. And this is an interesting spot because when you're looking at my matchup chart, taking on the Washington football team, they're actually the worst team to target in terms of DK points given up to wide receivers. They've been a very good secondary. But these guys are grading out really, really good for me this week just based on pure volume and based on their price tag. So it's a really interesting spot, and I'm actually really excited about it because I think I'm going to get this stack low owned. And I think there's going to be a lot of plays in this game. I got them projected to for 68 total snaps in the offense. And I don't know. It's just really standing out in an ironic way because obviously the matchup's not great. I got a projected for 14.68 DK points. The over-under doesn't stand out. Nothing really stands out outside of the target share in this offense being so condensed. We know where the ball's going for this Cincy team. When looking at their game logs, and where the ball's going. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, we can just kind of cover at once here because these are the two guys that I have interest in. 9 targets, 5 targets, 8 targets the last 4 weeks for T. Higgins. Very involved in this offense. 21, 18, 14, 26 DK points. When looking at his stats on the season and how he's fared, how he's been involved, we can see that he's got a 78.3 snap share percentage, 61 targets, 12.5 average target distance. You love to see that. 15.1 yards per reception, similar to a Justin Jefferson. Getting down the field, he has the upside. 95 air yards per game, 17 contested targets, and he's reeled in 7 of those. And then he's involved in the red zone as well. 7 red zone targets, 3 end zone targets. Love to see that. And then, his counterpart in Tyler Boyd, 5,600, slight price decrease to him. Also very involved. 8 targets, 7 targets, 13 targets, 8 targets, 12, 30, 19, and 10 DK points. And when looking at his overall involvement and where he's been involved, 76 targets, 21.2 target share percentage, 72 air yards per game, 93.8 true catch rate, 7 contested targets. He reeled in 3 of those, and he's got 11 red zone targets. So similar to a Juju Smith, who we already discussed, Boyd's very similar. We're not seeing a lot of downfield targets for him, but we are seeing consistency and we are seeing some major red zone targets. So I think he has a very good chance to find pay dirt, and definitely have interest in both of those guys this week. Moving further along, down to Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, a guy now playing for Houston, taking on his former team in the New England Patriots this week, comes in at a 5,200 price tag. He's got 84.7 snap percentage, playing on a lot of snaps. 14.05 DK points. I got him projected for this week with a 1.09 big play rating at 5,200. I think he's very affordable. I think he grades out to be a great value on the slate. And when looking at how the Patriots have fared against wide receivers, we can see that they're the 20th best team to target. So really not the best team to target, honestly, when it comes to giving up points to wide receivers. But it really comes down to Cook's price tag and his involvement in the offense. Snap shares up there. His target share is a 23.4% target share of the offense. 72.9 air yards per game, 89.6 true catch rate, and pretty involved consistently for his price tag. So it comes out to really what he's priced at, and I definitely like him. 89.7% snap share percentage is great. He's very involved. He's out there a lot, and I think that he grades out very good in my projection. Jacoby Myers is the next guy on the other side of the ball, taking on this Houston Texans team. The Houston Texans team, when looking at how they fared against wide receivers, they've really struggled. Number 17 to target in terms of DK points getting up the game on my chart. And at only a 4.9 price tag this week on DraftKings, I do think that Jacoby Myers is interesting. I got him projected for 13.45 DK points right now. He's going to get those receptions, the PPR format. I like him. His team has a 25.5 implied total. I mean, looking at how he's fared in this offense and his statistics this year, Jacoby Myers has 77.9 snap share percentage, 27.3 target share. That's really good. That actually stands out. He's number one wide receiver in this offense, so I mean that makes sense. But 88.8 air yards per game, that stands out. 90.3 true catch rate. And the only thing that he doesn't have is the red zone targets. I'd like to see him involved a little bit more in the red zone, so that's where things get a little bit sticky. They're kind of using him to move the ball, and then once they get down to the red zone, this becomes more of a Cam Newton running game strategy, it seems. But when you're factoring in his price tag and you're factoring in his involvement, I do think he's viable at 4.9. You're not paying like $6,000 for him. So even though he lacks a little bit in the red zone, I do think that he could pay off his price tag. Next guy, Jalen Reagor for the Philadelphia Eagles, comes in at 4.3. I think that he's been underpriced the last few weeks. He's been a guy that I've been talking about pretty consistently now, just due to his increased involvement in this offense and really his lack of change in price tag on DraftKings is what's making me have interest in him. It's just a price thing. Looking at Jalen Reagor's price tag, 4.3 on DraftKings this week, and his involvement. Last week he had 7 targets. The week before, 6 targets, 4.4, pretty consistent, and we're starting to see it ramp up with 6 and 7 the last 2 weeks. And this week he gets to take on a Cleveland Browns team who is, according to my wide receiver matchup chart, the 5th best team to target in terms of wide receivers, giving up 44.2 DK points a game to wide receivers. So I definitely think that the Eagles could put up some points this week. And I definitely think that Jalen Reagor is the place to start as far as his price tag is concerned. Like him this week. And we have a few more guys to get through. We got 3 more guys for you, and these guys are starting to get in the real deep value range. So if you're needing a really cheap option, these 3 guys are my guys this week. It all starts with KJ Hamler for the Denver Broncos taking on the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins and how they fared against wide receivers this year haven't been all that great. The 10th best team to target, giving up 40 DK points a game. And then specifically when looking at Hamler's stats and his involvement in this offense, 72.7 snap share percentage, 15.7 target share percentage, which isn't bad at all really when you're factoring in everything. A 11.4 yards per reception. That's solid. 59.2 air yards per game. 16.9 air yards per reception. A guy that can go down the field and get it. 70 true catch rate is the only thing that really I'm not liking. We may see a few drops out of him, so you got to factor that into the projections. But 3 red zone targets, 2 end zone targets. He's just a value guy, and I definitely think he's viable this week. Liking Hamler. My favorite value play is, it's tough to say because, you're looking at my value. I'm giving you a sneak peek. I have a value ranking for both of these guys, and actually value-wise, Hamler does stick out more. But to me, my favorite guy in this low range is Jakeem Grant Sr. for this Miami Dolphins team taking on the Denver Broncos this week. Looking at my wide receiver matchup chart and how the Broncos have fared against wide receivers, you can see they're the 12th best team to target. And then when looking at Grant's numbers and tracking how he's been involved in the offense, 10.8 target share percentage, 26.9 air yards per game, but he does have a 95.7 true catch rate, and he's catching a lot of those contested catches. And then specifically just when looking at the game script and how this game's projected to go, they are a 3.5 point favorite, and they have a 24.5 implied total. So it's really the team total and his price tag. The projected score 24.5 points. That really stands out as far as my model's concerned. And when Jakeem Grant's only 3.5, I think he can be involved in that, and I definitely like him. I don't know. It's tough. I don't want to speak wrong, but I like Jakeem Grant, I like Hamler, and it's really tough to decide between both of them. I don't know. Hamler's playing more snaps. Jakeem Grant is just a better implied team total. So those guys is kind of a coin flip. Maybe I shouldn't say Jakeem Grant's my favorite, but regardless, they're in the video for a reason. I like those 2 options. And the last guy that I want to talk about is Chris Conley, coming in at a 3K price tag, 47.6% of the snaps. And he is on a team who are 10-point underdogs. The Jacksonville Jaguars expected to have to fight back in this one, and that's where my interest in him grows because at only 3K, I think they're going to be throwing a lot, and I think he's going to be involved. Looking at his stats on the year, you can see 51.4 snap share percentage, 10.6 average target distance, pretty solid, 17.2 air yards per reception, 86.7 true catch rate, and 5 end zone targets. 5 red zone targets, 5 end zone targets. Conley's involvement in this offense is actually, relatively impressive for his price tag. He's only 3K. I don't know the kind of attention that he's going to get on this slate, but I'm guessing, there's not going to be a lot of people talking about Chris Conley, and he's a guy that I definitely have interest in. He's only 3K. Looking at his game logs, you can see week 10, he had 8 DK points. Week 9, he had 12 DK points. Week 7, he had 9 DK points. I mean, these are all really solid numbers for a guy that's coming in at 3K consistently. And I definitely think he's, my top value play of the slate at a minimum price salary on DraftKings. So he's the last guy that I'll mention. Definitely get him in your lineups if you're looking for some salary relief. And that is all of my top wide receivers for this Week 11 NFL DFS slate on DraftKings. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of any future content that I release. And then leave your favorite wide receiver play down below in the description. I always forget to say that, but I want to hear your guys' feedback too. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. Give me your take, give me your research, tell me why you like the guy. And don't forget, if you're interested in my Patreon packages, it'll be linked below in the description where you get access to all my projections, all my rankings, all my sheets, and all that good stuff. Thank you for tuning in. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next video where we're going to start breaking down my top tight end plays for this Week 11 slate.